Lovely to see everybody here. How good. We've got a lot of people online. We've also got Sam on from Viva Homes and Miranda, who does our drawing and architecture. And we've got a few other panellists here as well. It looks like we've got Shamus, is that right? Shamus from about Straw and Earth Homes. And we've got some other panellists. So maybe Shamus, do you want to introduce yourself and what your specialty is and where you are?
Yeah, hi. My name's Shamus O'Reilly. So we're opening our house today, which is a straw bale home in regional Victoria. I am a builder and I specialise in sustainable building, ethical, passive solar designed homes. And hence in my research, I've really found that straw bale is the best pick for all of those elements. And so that's why we've decided to build ourselves a straw bale house. So I've got a young family, a couple of kids, my wife and I, and we're living on a 2-acre property where we've got our home and we've started our orchard and veggie garden. We really enjoy living in a super healthy home, and something that we're really passionate about is bringing up our kids in a healthy and happy home. We have earth renders inside our house, so it's very natural, no toxin. We don't have any chemical finishes or anything like that inside. So yeah, we're really stoked to just really live in quite a natural house that feels welcoming and comfortable, and it's a beautiful temperature all year round. So yeah, we're really stoked on life at the moment.
That's brilliant, Shamus. What do you love most about your straw and earth home?
I just love that it's so stable, and the temperature inside the house is just consistent all year round. It's very economical. It just is really stable, and I've said it plenty of times, but I really feel like when you walk into a straw bale home, it feels like the house is giving you a big hug. It feels really natural to be inside a house that is made of natural materials and is happy and healthy and breathable. So I think that's it.
Yeah, brilliant. All right.
Warramunga Earth House, are you able to please introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, it's Travis and Sophie from the Warramunga Rammed Earth House. Lovely to be here today. We're a rammed earth house in suburban Canberra, and we built this house about 2 years ago, kind of built around two key principles, solar passive design and then the use of natural and recycled materials. So we've got a house built around recycled bricks and recycled timber, but perhaps today we're here to really talk about the rammed earth that's through the house.
So the house has an internal spine. I guess the rammed earth walls are internal around the living and entry areas. And the great thing, the reason we chose to do that was because the rammed earth provides great thermal mass, which helps stabilise the temperatures all year round. It's just a super comfortable house to live in. The walls are about 300 mils thick, and they absorb heat and keep us warm in winter and cool in summer. The earth itself is sourced from a quarry just south of Canberra near Bredbo, so there's a mix of sort of gravel and clay and a little bit of cement just to help stabilise things. And it's got a couple of bonuses in addition to keeping the house comfortable. And there is no maintenance. It doesn't contain any dust. We don't have to paint it, and it just looks absolutely great. We think it's beautiful and super tactile. When people come over, they just want to touch the walls.
It sounds beautiful, doesn't it? When it's cold outside, what does it feel like inside?
Yeah, look, it's even in Canberra's temperatures, when we get -5 overnight, it still stays at about 19-20 degrees overnight with no heating overnight, and it's just beautiful. We kind of forget that it's cold outside. We have to we've got 2 daughters, and we have to remind them when they go outside, hey, it's cold, you need to wrap up and warm.
Exactly. Sometimes in these natural homes, what I find is you dress inside for what you think the temperature is outside, and you go outside and you go, gosh, it's not what I thought, and then have to go back inside to change again. Is that right? Is that the same with you?
Exactly. No Ugg boots anymore in this house. We yeah, we certainly notice how warm it is underfoot and throughout the house. So it's fabulous.
Brilliant. How good's that? Alrighty.
Thank you, Travis and Sophie. We'll move to John from Noonamina now to give your introduction.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, everybody. Lovely to be part of the Sustainable House Day open day again. I've had my house open a number of times, and this is the first time as a virtual tour. Noonamina, which is an Aboriginal word for bush resting place, was a bucket list project for us. Heading towards retirement, we wanted to build our own home, and we were keen to build in straw. As I said, bucket list item, always wanted to do it. And we found a lovely block in central Victoria on Lake Epilogue. And in the process of discovering or looking for a builder to help us build the house, we found a guy that was a passive house builder, trained, and he introduced us to that method of building, and we basically changed slightly our design and our construction to meet passive house standards and stick with the straw system. So we've built a house with a structured super insulated tilt-up panel. It's actually you probably see in some pictures behind me or on the presentation page. It's a ply box with straw pressured into each section, and they basically come as individual panels, and we dot them around the edge of the slab, screwed them together, rendered them on the outside, conventional plaster board inside to help us with our air tightness layer, and it's ventilated with a heat recovery ventilation system. So we have very, very stable temperatures all year round, 20 to 25 most of the time, without any active heating or cooling, and humidity sits between 35 and 50 all year round. So it's very comfortable, particularly when it gets hot and humid outside. So yeah, we've been in the house 3 years, absolutely love it. As our friends Travis and Sophie talk about, we have to stick our head out the door to see what temperature is outside, because we can't hear it or see it. Feel it, sorry. Yeah, we had to, we bought all these nice warm doonas and sheets and things for winter, and we gave them back because we're just in shorts and t-shirts all year round. So there's certainly efficient home, straw, rammed earth, and obviously in our case, the passive house. It's just wonderful. So yeah, we're very happy.
Wonderful. Simone, that is, so if we can try and jump back to Miranda, if we've got sound from Miranda, otherwise that's all of our introductions, and we've got some questions in the Q&A.
Well, how about I start with Miranda until you jump on then? How's that? So Miranda's got a beautiful straw bar house in Blackheath. She built it and designed it with her husband, and it's also, you know, some of the foundations have tyres filled with earth in it, and there's straw bars, and I'm sure she'll correct me when she does come online. And Miranda, if you're still having audio issues, maybe in the chat you can let me know if I've missed anything as well. Got some beautiful lime renders on the outside and clay earthen renders on the inside. It's quite unique in that there's like it's in a bushfire zone, so the bushfires came up really close just recently in the last fires, and they were able to keep the fires at bay, and they were able to do it. She lives next door to a straw bale renderer, and they were able to do the renders on the outside as well, and all year round, just really comfy. I think there's double glazing on the windows as well, and just similar to what everybody's saying about that feel, where it's just a snug cocoon, peaceful feeling as soon as you walk in, and just the feeling is a lightness and peacefulness. And yeah, she lives there with her children, and it's quite a large house for a family, but it's been one that's really kind of adapted with them as well. So I hope that helps.
That's great. We are about to link to the Blackheath profile in the chat as well, so people will be able to find out some more information. Did you want to move to some of the questions, Simone, in the Q&A? Are you able to see those?
Yes, I can. Okay, so let's see. So Katja asked, what are your recommendations for alternative? Is it okay? Do you want me to read them, or can everybody see those Q&As? So I can just say, oh, look, Katja.
No, they're just you that can see those.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Okay, all right. Lucky me. So Katja is asking, what are your recommendations for alternative ceiling materials to timber and plaster? Well, that's a really, really great question, actually, because as natural builders that we are, we tend to use timber, so ceiling lining boards, like pine lining boards, and they're tongue and groove. And what you can do is pre-paint them and then put them up and then, you know, do a final paint. So for us as builders, that's one of the fastest things. Plasterboard, obviously, you know, we find, you know, gyprock not that great. But some of the other things that we can do is there's something called, like it's actually recycled paper. And it's, I mean, some people use, you know, metal, mini orb. I'm not really a fan of hard surfaces as much. But yeah, the natural recycled paper is really nice. It actually looks like gyprock, but there's just a lot of layers. Now we're natural builders, so we will go to the point of finding out what glues are holding everything together. So when I say that is, we would go and find out whether there's, you know, nasties in those glues or whether they're, you know, water-based glues. So that's important. You know, not being flammable is another thing, because some people can use Stramit or, you know, there's other natural materials. But you've just got to obviously be careful about the whole, you know, fire kind of thing as well. So,
John, thank you, Simone. John, what's your experience with that?
With hard surfaces? I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So alternative materials to timber and plaster for ceiling materials.
Well, we actually were looking to minimise the labour that was required on site. So we looked at SIPs wherever we could. And so our timber panels are self-explanatory. But we used it's actually a metal clad foam structured SIP. So it was a structural metal roof which spanned the whole house, so no trusses, no frames. Not ideal in the sense of its material choice, performance-wise and cost to put up. It was up in 2 days and it became part of our airtight layer, and it was quite simple. But there are some nuances in that, and I wouldn't do that again. I'd be looking at timber trusses or some sort of natural material.
Shamus?
Yeah, as Simone said, I'm a natural builder as well. We use a lot of pine lining, tongue and groove. But there is another great product. It's by a company called Ortec, which is in Bendigo in Victoria. And they produce a compressed straw panel, and it's called Dura Panel. And I think it's about 50 to 75 millimeters thick, and it's got like a paper face. So it looks fairly conventional, but it is an insulated straw panel. And it's not very insulative, but it does provide some insulation. But it's a really natural product with no other glues or anything like that in it. So definitely worth a look at that.
and what about Travis and Sophie?
We use the whole range of pretty traditional building materials in our house. We try to use the rammed earth and recycled timber, but in terms of ceiling products and things like that, we've used standard plasterboard. We're trying to just hit a price point as well as we built, and have a house that's reasonably normal, but has those additional qualities of the rammed earth.
Thank you. And we'll just go to the other questions, shall we?
So there's one about, an interesting one about how people have managed straw bale walls in the wet areas of the house, so that kitchen and the bathroom. So that's an interesting one that we could pose to the panel.
Yeah. Do you want to go, Shamus?
Yeah, totally. Again, as a builder, we're all about a bit of risk management. So we try and avoid putting straw in the wet areas. We normally just use a 90 mil or a double 90 mil stud frame. So we still have bulk insulation. But then we're keeping all our plumbing out of the straw bale walls. That way, if there is ever a pipe burst in the next 25 years, it's not in a straw bale wall and it's easy to fix. So that's our preference. We do try and design houses around that and keeping wet areas to the inside of the house. Or if you do really want to put it in a straw bale wall, we even build like a small dummy wall in front of the straw. So we do whatever we can generally just to keep the plumbing outside, or water pipes outside of the straw, whether it's a cavity under the kicker of the kitchen or something like that. So there's a lot of ways around it without actually running, physical water through the middle of a straw wall.
Yeah, brilliant.
Oh, Simone, we appear to have lost you there for a moment. So, John, do you have anything to contribute, or Travis and Sophie? We seem to still have lost Miranda. So,
on the water side,
the wet areas.
Our wall structure from the outside in it's lime render straight onto the straw, and then we have an airtight layer of paper on the inside layer of the frame, and then we have battened off 45 mil, and then all the services go in that cavity, and then in most rooms it's just normal gyprock, and in the bathrooms, wet areas, it's the normal tilers. I don't know what the board is that they use for any internal use, green or blue or something. So Shamus might know what it's called, because we were an owner builder, so we did some of the stuff, and some, we had trades doing others. So it's just a standard sort of wall structure. So there's no special tricks to it in our case. We don't have the water facing. We don't have any internal render showing on the straw.
Right. And Travis and Sophie, I'm just interested how you dealt with your wet areas.
Yeah, so our wet areas are, again, just standard, because we just have the walls are really in the living areas and the entry area. So the kitchens and bathrooms are just standard kind of construction. Apart from, we do have one toilet that has, I think, two, but just by kind of default, has two rammed earth walls, which I think a couple of people have told us they think it's probably the most beautiful toilet in Canberra, the room. So.
But no water services in the rammed earth. I think one of the tricky parts about rammed earth is that you have to work out where all your wiring and other kind of services are going before you put the rammed earth in. So just after your slab goes down, you really need to know exactly where all your power points, your light fittings, all of that kind of stuff is. Both in terms of the layout on the floor, but the height up the wall and things like that as well. So it brings forward some of your decision making a fair bit. But I might leave it there.
All right, we might go to another question if that's okay. We've got Kerry. Do these houses take longer to build than a traditional stick and brick house? How about you, John? Do you want to start us off?
Well, from the day the slab was finished, it's internal area, floor area of 180 square metres. We were sleeping in here in 10 months. So we chose the wall system and the roofing system to make it as short as possible. That was kind of part of the strategy along the way. So it was not a long period of time. Bit of work in the design stage, as there normally is, and I'd encourage everyone to do that carefully before you start. With the passive house side of it, that took a lot of the uncertainty out of how it was going to perform, because we were looking for quietness, stable temperatures, clean fresh air, and once that was done, it was just execution. And we had a builder work with us. He didn't take on the contract; he was already working on another project. So I did all the other stuff that he didn't do, And so it was a bit of a team effort, and with him doing other jobs, it was still relatively short period of time.
Brilliant. And what about you, Shamus?
Yeah, I would say in my case, mine's my own home, and I am a builder as well. So our house took us about 18 months to complete. But that's because I was doing it kind of as a bit of a side project, more so than a full-time job. But in general, I'd say that a straw bale house takes just the same amount of time as a well-built home. It's not comparable to Metricon and Simmons and a volume-built estate home. But the quality and finish generally isn't either. So we normally tell our clients around the 10 to 12 months is our standard build time, whether it's a conventional materials or a straw bale or rammed earth or any natural material.
Yep. And Travis and Sophie?
So our house took about 9 months to build from when we were breaking ground. So yeah, I guess that's actually pretty quick. The only tricky bit, I guess, was that the slab went down first and then the rammed earth walls, and the builders had to sort of work around the walls, but they did a great job of that. We were really happy with the way they handled that. It was a bit difficult and unusual for them. They hadn't done it before, but it didn't seem to slow them down at all.
Brilliant. Awesome.
Miranda is back, Simone, as well.
Oh.
So Miranda, are you able to unmute and give a little intro as well? We'll try again.
Hi, thank you for the intro, Simone, describing my house. That was very noble of you to step in. Yeah, so as Simone said, I designed our house, and it took us about 2 years or so to build it. It is quite big, but we were just owner builders, and it was the first time we'd ever done it, so it was all a bit trial and error, and we got a lot of great advice from some local friends and straw bale builders, and we actually started our journey through doing the straw bale building workshops with Viva Living Homes, which set us on this path, which was wonderful. The thing that took longest for us really was actually getting it through council, not so much from the design point of view, but from the materials, but actually the bushfire issue. That was a major thing for us. We actually ended up with BAL 29 as a sort of moderately high rating. But yeah, after a couple of years with the designs and the approval process, it took us about 2 years to build. And the longest part of it was probably the excavation and the foundations, which, as Simone said, were on rammed earth tires with rammed earth that the suspended slab actually sits on. So it's quite an unusual combination. We've got virtually every sort of build in here. We've got straw bales, we've got in situ concrete, we've got tires, and we've got pure cob walls as well.
Brilliant. Well,
go on.
shall we head to the questions, Jess?
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's have another question.
Alrighty. Oh, great question. It says videographer Melbourne. Can the speakers touch on running costs and total costs of the build, including square metre size of house? I guess, price per square metre. So that's two questions, the running cost and the costs of the build. How about we go to John first?
Yes, we built, well, it turns out you measure the area because our walls are so thick. So we had a slab that was 234 square metres and inside area of 179, 180. And so you can divide your costs by whichever number you like.
Go the external. I find as a builder, the external dimensions are much more accurate.
Well, it'd be less than 2,700 because that's what I use as the number based on the internal dimension. So you could dilute that a bit smaller. Running costs, there are none. I don't use a heater and occasionally use the split system on hot, humid days. I have ceiling fans in each room. They run, so work out how many watts that is. It's not a lot. So from an energy use point of view for heating and cooling, it's virtually zero. The HRV runs, and that's less than a light bulb a day sort of thing. It's pretty light on.
Brilliant. And how about you, Shamus?
Yeah, we have a fully electric house. So we have a 5 kilowatt solar array on our shed, which is separate to the house. I don't have any figures in front of me, but we generally get a very poor feedback rate. So we are paying, I think we're paying around about $20 or $30 in electricity a month through the winter, and we're not really paying anything over the summer months. So, you know, we might be talking about a running cost of whatever, $150 or something like that for the year. We've got water tanks, so we're not paying for any water. We are connected to town water, so we are paying that small amount. And then on the actual cost to build, we sit around $2,500 a square metre, up to $3,000 a square metre for like a build cost of the straw bale. I know some owner builders, and John might have more experience with that, can do it a bit cheaper because they're not paying for labour. And labour really is the biggest expense in building any house. So if you can kind of cut that out by doing some stuff yourself, you can definitely save yourself some money there.
Yeah, brilliant. And Miranda?
Shamus, we've got 5 kilowatts of solar panels, but we are connected to the grid, so we feed back excess in summer. I haven't got absolute figures, but I've basically designed the house to be energy neutral over the year, which is what it's turning out to be. We do have a slow combustion wood heater, and we have underfloor hydronic heating powered by heat pumps. So yeah, energy neutral over the year. Water, likewise, we have our own tanks, but we are town connected. We're all electric, so we don't have any gas. And in terms of the cost to build, look, that's so hard as owner builders. You know, we both worked flat out for 2 years on it. So excluding our labour costs, I think I worked out we were under 2,000 a square metre to build, but you know, you can't really relate that to a building cost because of so much labour that went into it from myself. But because a lot of the materials were recycled tyres, the timber was all from our site, so that was milled and effectively a free material. The cob, and we were lucky that our site soil had the right clay content, so all the cob came and all the rock came from our site as well. So our material costs were very low. So we were lucky on that front.
Brilliant. And Sophie and Travis?
Yeah, in terms of running costs, I mean, we have no running costs here for energy use. You know, we've got a somewhat oversized solar system to cope with the Canberra winter and the energy use in winter. So we've got 9 kilowatts on our roof, but we're energy positive. I think we exported to the grid about 320 days last year out of 365, of course. So very positive in that sense. In terms of build costs, we were around $2,700 a square metre. I think we're about a 200 square metre sort of conditioned area, like inside, and about 2,700 a square metre. But you could bring some of that cost down if you look to take out some of the we've got hydronic heating in the floor, which again added quite a bit of cost, and triple glazed windows, and some of those are more expensive options. So you could bring that down, but we were really happy with 2,700 a square metre. That seemed pretty good.
And in terms of sort of how much the extra the rammed earth cost, I think that was minimal in the kind of grand scheme of the build of the house. We looked at other options for thermal mass like double brick and things like that, and it was kind of, the cost comparison was very similar.
Yeah, I agree. We've seen that. So yeah, 2,700 to 3,000 is pretty normal, in terms of those, decent spec houses. Yeah, and 2,000 around the owner builder is what, is brilliant. Great.
Simone, we've got time for one more question.
Oh, really?
We'll see how we go, but it's one around the process of getting approval through council, and whether this has been tedious or challenging in any way for any of the panellists. The person has just expressed that their council doesn't seem too keen in straw bale and other eco-friendly building methods, especially since they were one of the worst affected council areas in New South Wales, unfortunately, with the bushfires.
Off you go, John.
Never came up. We're in a bale 12.9 area. So it was that's pretty low. The only thing we had to change was our fly screens to metal. But my research into it from a straw system, particularly with a render on the outside, the chances of a house burning, it's more likely to burn from the inside than the outside. If you look at some of the fires in California and the like, there are places decimated, like our fires during Christmas. Scorched earth. And the only buildings that are still up are rammed earth and straw buildings. It's really quite bizarre. So yeah, we had no issue with council. The engineering work for our panel system, I think that probably made a difference. That it's a structured panel system which has already had the engineering done. So we had all those comps, and yeah, it's more timber in your wall than you would in a normal stick frame. So it was really not an issue for us. I think if you were building more traditionally with an infill, then the structural side of it is different. But our panels are our walls. So it's more like a timber frame with infill that way, but they're all sort of one unit.
Brilliant. And Shamus?
Yeah. So we get straw bale houses building permits pretty easily. We have a set of documents, and we use a specialist engineer, BSE Engineering, he works. Michael Brady is the principal there, and he does work in Victoria and New South Wales, as this question is. So I definitely recommend contacting them. But essentially, if you're providing the relevant documents, and with a bushfire, a great organisation is Ausbale, which is a not-for-profit straw bale association. And Ausbale have testing to say that a straw bale home can be built up to a bale flame zone, which is the highest bushfire attack level. So if you're talking about bushfires, straw bale is actually one of the safest materials to build out of.
Awesome. And Travis and Sophie?
Yeah, the rammed earth was a bit of a challenge for us. There weren't a lot of rammed earth houses in Canberra, so there wasn't a lot of experience here in rammed earth housing. So in the end, we had quite the battle with our engineers around making the rammed earth load bearing, which was the key sort of challenge for us. In the end, it's not load bearing. I know it can be, and we were pushing hard for it to be, but in the end, it just became more complicated and time consuming to do that. So we've got the structural beams sort of built into plasterboard walls that come off the rammed earth. So you wouldn't know, but certainly that took us a fair while to get that approved. In terms of getting it through council, I mean, once we had that sorted, everything else was fine. Our rammed earth, as we said before, it's internal only, so it's not an external wall, so it wasn't relevant in a bushfire kind of sense or anything like that. It was simply the internal walls, and it was the load-bearing aspect that took us a little while to get sorted.
Brilliant. And I'm just mindful of the time. And Miranda, you had straw bale in Blue Mountains Council. How was that?
Yeah,
okay?
Blue Mountains Council was fine with it. We actually at that stage didn't have the Ausbale fire sort of rating report, but because we had such thick render on either side, it effectively counted as a masonry wall. We've got about sort of 50 to 90 mil minimum thickness cob and lime render on the outside. So that got through fine on the performance-based solution method for approval from the council. As I said, we were BAL 29, so we were allowed external hardwood, which was great. So we've got a nice wooden deck. In terms of the engineering, again, we used a specialist engineer because I designed some fairly silly curved walls and curved roofs and all sorts of funky stuff. Our engineer had a bit of a challenge getting that sorted, but yeah, that all went through with no problem. So the timber frame is the load bearing aspect, the straw bale is infill. And yeah, also I should say, I guess on the bushfire aspect, yeah, as you mentioned, Simone, in my intro, we did have fires coming up. Luckily not right to the walls of the house, but certainly up to the edge of the garden this last Christmas, which was a little hair raising. But yeah, the actual walls thankfully weren't tested, but I was extremely glad that we had all the other asset protection zones and things in place for that. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. And has everyone had time to look at the tour? They look amazing.
So that's taking us now to the end of the session. So Simone, thank you so much for stepping in and helping MC the conversation today, and to John, Travis, Sophie, Shamus and Miranda for all giving your experiences around building with straw and earth. It's been very valuable. People out there in the audience, there's about nearly 260 people out there. Just letting you know that you can view all of the profiles that have been spoken about in this session on the Sustainable House Day website, and you can also ask more questions of the homeowners as well. There was lots of questions, we can't get through them all, but thank you everyone for your participation.